Welcome and thank you for standing by. I would like to inform all parties that today's call is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. All participants will remain on a listen-only mode for the remainder of this call up until the question and answer session. I would now like to turn the call over to your host, Heidi Crawford. You may begin.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you for joining us today for the life cycle of a piece of data. My name is Heidi Crawford, and along with my partner today, David Craker, we are data dissemination specialists with the Census Bureau. And we are just a few of the data dissemination specialists across the country that are available to conduct trainings, presentations, and we respond to data inquiries from data users and our other stakeholders. I'm responsible for activities in Alaska, Oregon, and Washington, and David services New York State and Northern New Jersey. We'll also provide you with our contact information at the end of today, as well as our general email and phone number, so if you would like to find out who your local DDS is. This session will trace how Question 16, Health Insurance and Health Coverage Plans of the American Community Survey, moves from conception to data collection, statistical release, and then who and how it is used. Then following the presentation, we'll look at an example of finding the data in American Factfinder, and then also how to find data while learning more about the question itself. The webinar will last about an hour. We'll include time for questions. We'll have a Q&A session during our session and then also after the webinar. But we also have the chat box that is open and available, and David and I will try and do our best to try and address questions through the chat during the session as well. So to begin, I'd like to start with just a quick overview of the American Community Survey. And the ACS, the American Community Survey, or as we like to say, the ACS, because we like our acronyms at the Census Bureau, samples approximately 3.5 million addresses annually, which comes out to about 290,000 addresses per month. And these data are collected continuously throughout the year to produce annual social, economic, housing, and demographic estimates. And the ACS covers resident population of the United States and Puerto Rico for people living in housing units and group quarters. And when I talk about housing units, you can think of, your traditional living arrangements such as a house or apartment or a mobile home. And then in terms of the group quarters living arrangements might look like dorms, correctional facilities, or barracks. And then the difference between the ACS and the Census. So the decennial is conducted every 10 years, and as many of you know, we're gearing up for the 2020 Census. The ACS is a sample survey that happens every year throughout the year. And essentially, the ACS replaced the Census long form. So last time we did the Census long form was in the 2000 Census. And that was about when 1 in 7 people received that long form. And I can say I was very excited because I actually received that long form myself. In terms of content for the American Community Survey, go ahead, next slide. Thanks, David. The content is collected in 4 main types of buckets or characteristics. We've got our social, our economic, our housing, and demographic. Now, with each question on the ACS, it is required for federal and state government programs. And in terms of what we are exploring today, we ask questions about health insurance coverage to create statistics about the percentage of people covered by health insurance and sources of health insurance. And then local, state, tribal, and federal agencies use this health insurance coverage data to plan government programs. They might use it to determine eligibility criteria. and then encourage eligible people to participate in health insurance programs. So now David will go ahead and walk through the process and provide an example of how groups use this data.
Thank you, Heidi, for turning that over to me. I just need to say that I am on slide number 6. I know some people couldn't dial in, so they're just listening and following the PowerPoint. So this is a study I did, sort of like a life cycle study or a trajectory of something, like to see how something begins and ends. So how did we get this question on the form? It was sort of an interagency cooperation and they had to go through the Office of Management and Budget and the Census Bureau, and they had to work it out how they would insert yet another question on our ACS questionnaire that has more than 70 questions on it, by the way. So the present question evolved from a disability question that was on the form back in 2000, and because of changes to Children's Health Insurance Program, the Reauthorization Act, it was brought to our attention that they needed to get extra information. So a notice was put in the Federal Register that new content was going to be added. It was at the request of the CBC, and then once that was approved, it was put on the ACS form in 2008. At that time, it was question number 15. But because things do move around a little bit sometimes on the ACS questionnaire, it eventually evolved into question 16. So how do we actually go out and get that data? It starts in something called the master address file. And in-house, we call that the MAF. And then we have something called the TIGER, Topologically Integrated Geocoding and Coding Referencing System. Basically, it's a live, breathing, active map that we have, a system of streets and line work, and we sort of marry that up with the master address file. We pull the two together, and that's sort of the beginning of what we use to start interviewing people and sending questionnaires out. So that MAF TIGER system, we take a snapshot in time, and we call that an extract. We do it probably twice a year, sometimes more than twice a year, but usually twice a year. That snapshot of that live, living, breathing system is sent over to another part of the Bureau, actually from geography, and they're going to start pulling out the addresses that they want to sample. And we have 16 different sampling rates around the country. Some areas that are harder to count, we oversample. Some areas I don't say we undersample, but we sample just what we need. So it is pulled from the MAF, and it is sent over to our processing branch, and then they started going. Okay, so they send that the list of addresses to National Processing Center, and that's in Jeffersonville, Indiana, just across the river from Louisville, Kentucky. And NPC begins pulling those addresses and assembling cards and letters and packets that they're going to send out to households in order to get ACS data. So let's think about that. The card and the letter and the questionnaire go out to a household. And we have two, no matter what we say, we always call people the respondent, even if they want to respond or if they don't want to respond. But in this case, it goes to the home of somebody who's agreeable, an agreeable respondent, we'll say. And the person that I interviewed for this actually had 3 different generations living in the household. And there are 5 people living there. And what that person did was to fill up his section of the form, and then he passed it around to his offspring, and they passed it around to their offspring. So each person filled in their section of the form. At one point, he had trouble. He didn't really know how to answer the question about the health insurance, and so he called the helpline, and he found that they were very courteous, and they sort of walked him through it and explained, where his answer how it would help, or how it would fall into the greater picture of statistics. And so finally that was all filled up, and he sent it back to National Processing Center. So keep in mind that things started there and they finished there in a sense. So it comes back, this sort of big form that you unfold and everything, and we send it through what we call guillotine, and then so we cut off the folds, and then we take the pages and we scan them through a system, and then they are transcribed. Okay, so there is sort of a recognition software that can read, very often can read many things that are written down by hand, because the form does incorporate a lot of writing. If it can't, it will be signaled for somebody to take a look at it, to edit it perhaps, and to make a call. So on that form, we actually do ask people their names and a phone number, and we may call them back to get some sort of clarification if something cannot be read. The questionnaires are retained for many years until finally they are sent off to National Archives where they are stored. So we used to, let's think about this, we have what we call the reluctant respondent. So I just talked about the agreeable respondent. That's quite easy. They did the form. They either did the form or they did it online. They sent it back to us. But here we have somebody who's reluctant, who, for whatever reason, and if you notice the last line here, I wrote here, we no longer call respondents. I used to have this pictures of phones here. We did used to call people if we could figure out their phone number and try to get them to do some of the interviewing over the phone. We no longer do that. It's too much of a burden on the public. And so what we really do is we take that chunk of addresses that of the people who did not respond after an amount of time, about a month, they don't respond. We are going to take all those addresses. We sort of take 2/3 of the addresses, so not the whole kit and caboodle there, and we are going to transmit 2/3 of the addresses to the regional office. So RO means regional office, and we have 6 of them around the country, and that will be done at the end of the month. So 6 regional offices. I work near the New York regional office, which oversees New York State, New England, and New Jersey. So that it's sort of a madhouse when those cases come in. If you can imagine, something like 9,000 cases coming in at the end of the month, and someone in the office has to turn them around and get them out to the field supervisors within a week or so. They get those out for the next month, and then the field supervisors are going to reassign those to, we have about 500 ACS field representatives in the Northeast, and get that out for them to work on over the next month. Now, in the office, they like to say they can do 15 to 20 cases a month. The field rep very honestly said to me, no, we can only do 15 cases a month. So it's a lot of time and labor to get those interviews. The field representatives, they know the art of getting the interview. The field representative has a computer supplied to them by the Census Bureau. Usually there is a logo or a decal on the back of the computer indicating that they work for the Census Bureau. And some people work this as full-time jobs. Most people are part-timers. They like meeting people. They work sometimes during the days, quite often it's the evenings and weekends, going out to get the follow-up interview. But not all interviews, we send people out there just because the non-response is not only because somebody did not respond. The non-response exists also because quite often we don't have good addresses. So I took a picture of this building here. This was a building in New York City that had something like, I think, 100 apartment units in it, and somebody decided to turn it into a luxury building. And so over a number of years, the tenants were moved out of the building, and their apartments went from something like 100 apartments to, I think, 60 apartments that they turned into larger luxury apartments. So during those years, there were no official addresses in this building, even though in our address list, we may have had something in there that was supplied to us by the post office. So this would have been a bogus address. It would have been sent back to us. It's sort of in limbo. If we get an address like this, we go and we have to investigate it to figure out what is going on. We may say it's not a good address, or we may say that the housing unit is vacant. If the housing unit is vacant, we will try, because the survey does ask 24 questions about houses or the housing unit, we will try to get as much information as we can from the tax department or the landlord about the housing unit itself, like when it was built, what kind of heating fuel does it use, and that sort of thing. But we also have the predicament of people who don't speak English. They speak other languages, and so we send those cases to field representatives who speak languages, similar languages, and we send them out there with all sorts of brochures in other languages and get them to interview, if possible, get them to interview the resident. So then once that's done, at the end of that month, those cases are transmitted back to the regional office. So I am moving from slide number 14 to slide 15. And then once they come into the regional office, they are looked over very, very quickly. They're reviewed for any discrepancies or any anomalies, and then they are transmitted to our headquarters, which is in Suitland, Maryland. This is a picture of the building. And that's data coming from what we call CAPI, computer-aided personal interviews. So we interview people, and also from those vacant interviews. So it's sort of put back together, sent off to Suitland, and then we start applying what we call statistical methodologies and confidentiality rules so that people can be protected. So I like to say that we don't really, what we pull in is sort of a raw data, but that data is going to be released as statistics. So the data will be brought into one section of the Census Bureau of the American Community Survey Office, and then they're sort of going to look it over, and they'll transmit it to Decennial Information Technology Division. They will start working on the geographies, making sure that everything's in place, and that sounds kind of like an enigma. What does that mean, the geography? So we want to make sure that the data is in the right block, it's within the right tract, it's within the right city, the right school district, the right zip code. We make sure that it's in all those correct geographies. People like to analyze areas in different ways, and we supply that data in different ways. So they look through that, and then they start doing what they call prepping the system, getting that system ready for the new outpouring of data. And then we have something called Social, Economic, and Housing Statistics Division, and they will check what they call data shells. Okay, so they're putting things together that the data will go into, the tables and the geographies and the product with even metadata in there. And they will get that all ready for the data to be put in there. They do a bit of a test run first to make sure that it looks correct, and then they're going to get ready to release it to the public. They usually release it to the middle to the end of the week. When they do that, we have ACS data. 1-year data is released in September. 5-year data is in December. We put it on an embargoed site for just 1 day so that some members who have signed up for that site, predominantly the press, can look at the numbers, and then it goes public. Once it goes public, it actually goes into something called an American Factfinder. That is a data portal that we have. Not all the data that's in American Factfinder comes from the ACS. It does come from other surveys, survey manufacturers, we have Census of governments, we have decennial. It's all sort of mixed in there. We have population estimates. So it is in there on this one web portal. This portal is free to everyone. The data is free to, or I should say statistics, to whoever wants it. So we asked question 16 in one way. We asked it, but it will be cross-tabulated in all sorts of ways. It will be cross-tabulated with race. It will be cross-tabulated with age. things of that sort, so that we can figure out if people are employed or unemployed, to figure out what is going on, and so that people can analyze different ways. So the next thing great thing that's going to happen in Census Bureau, we are moving away from this American Factfinder portal into something called data.census.gov. It has no name yet. I like to call it the Data Hub right now, but anyway, as we go through this year, data from now on is going to be released onto this new website, and it's a new portal. So you might want to pay attention, or you might even want to go to data.census.gov, take a quick look at that. So let's think about a data user. So here's a person. This is up in the Finger Lakes, northern New York State. This is a nice summary picture of one of the Finger Lakes up there, but it also includes the Rochester area. And so somebody who is in a sort of private, public cooperation here, the Finger Lakes Health Systems Agency, she was trained by the New York State Data Center, SDC, and she was trained how to get our data. And she uses, at that time when I did the interview, she was using this data for a 9-county area in Rochester, New York. She used what we call the public use microdata samples, and that worked best for her. She was trying to figure out where people were unemployed and where they had no health insurance, and her agency would go out or they would come up with what they call solutions for different areas of that 9-county region, depending on demographics, who could get bits and pieces of health insurance or how they were going to structure it in different areas around there. And so that is it. That is the picture, the painting of how we get from beginning to end collecting data, and who this agency is at the end who is using that data. And so I think with that, let's just open up, see if there are any questions before I turn this over to Heidi. So, operator, if you could open it for questions.
Absolutely. We will now begin our question and answer session. If you would like to ask a question, press star 1 from your phone, unmute your line, and record your first and last name clearly when prompted. If you would like to withdraw your question, press star 2. One moment while we wait for the first question. There are no questions in queue at this time.
Okay. So, Heidi, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Okay, so now I'd like to show you all an example of the data by going into our American Factfinder tool. And I'm just going to show you a snapshot of how you can look up some of that health data and display it. And I'll show you a few bits of functionality and some of the things, but I'll add that if you want to learn more about using Factfinder, some of you, if this is a new tool or you want to brush up on using the tool, we do have other webinars that some of our peers are doing where you can learn more about that functionality. And so I'd like to mention that. And then after I show you the example in American Factfinder, I'm going to show you where you can go to find more information about the ACS questions, and then through that way show you another way to find data for the health topic. So hopefully everybody can see my desktop. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by going to Exploring Data and our Data Tools and Apps. And then I'm going to scroll down just a little bit here until I find American Factfinder. And before I get into the example, I want to point out here, David just mentioned that we're moving towards a new data platform. So our next release of data, as he mentioned, will be for the American Community Survey, will be released through this data.census.gov platform. So I just want to point that out, that if you are on Factfinder, that here's a way to go to data.census.gov, and we're really encouraging data users to go and check this out. We're continuing to update the product, and really the advancements that we have made have been because of all of our data users and what they're requesting in terms of functionality. So we have a couple options here to go into Factfinder, but today I'm going to start off with our advanced search function. And when I come here, I'm going to first I'm going to pick my geography first. And since I am out in Oregon, I'm going to go ahead and use that as my base for geography. And for my geography type, I'm going to come here, I'm going to scroll down, and I see state. And then I would like to show you all some data at the county level today. And then for my state, we're going to come on down here to Oregon. And then what I want to display for you all today is at the all county level. So I'm going to select all counties within Oregon. And then I'm going to add this to my selections. And you'll see, once I've selected my geography, it's up here in my search selections. So I've got all counties within Oregon. So now I want to add some data. So I'm going to come to our topics. And you'll see under topics we have a number of different buckets. We've got our people, we've got housing. You can look at products by year, product type, a specific program, or data set. And I want to look at health, since that's our topic today. So I'm going to come to people. I'm going to come down to insurance coverage. And then I see health insurance, and I'm going to select that. And you'll see again in the upper left, this is our guide as to what we're selecting. I now have health insurance included with my geography. Now, one of our product types that I really like, it gives us a lot of different information about some of our statistics, is something that's called a data profile. So I'm going to go ahead and select, under the product type, our data profile. And I'm going to close out of this. You'll see, based on my search criteria here in the upper left, that it narrowed down my options by what I selected. And so you'll see here, a list for our DP03 table. So this is our data profile table 3. And I'm going to select this top option. I'm going to go with our 5-year estimates. And I'm choosing the 5-year estimates because that accounts for our geography at different levels in different populations. The 1-year estimates, as you might have seen on one of those initial slides, is for populations of 65,000 or more. And I know that not all counties in Oregon may be populated that way. We have sparser counties. So I want to go with the 5-year estimate. I'm going to select this. And you'll see at the top, we get what our table number is and our table name. And then down here, we get our table. So you can start to see that it lists out all the different counties in Oregon. You'll also start to see, as we scroll down, the buckets of information that we get. So I asked for health, and I know health is in this particular table, but as you can see, I wanted to show you the health through the data profile table because I wanted you to be aware that our data profile tables can also offer some other really good information as well. So we've got employment status, we've got commuting to work, occupation, industry, class of worker, we've got some income information. And then I'm going to scroll down here and I see what I'm looking for today, and that's health insurance coverage. We also provide this information at different levels within health insurance coverage. So we've got our civilian, non-institutionalized, we've got civilian, we've got it broken down by year. We also have it employed versus unemployed, not in labor force. So we have some really good information here that we could draw from health insurance coverage. For today, I am interested in no health insurance coverage. I know that's often a popular topic with folks. So as you can see, we got a string of data here. Well, this table is great, but I'm more of a visual person. So I'd like to see it on a map and see how that data looks. So I'm going to scroll up here, and I'm going to come to create a map. When I select Create a Map, you can see that the table text went from black to blue, which is showing me that it's eligible to create a map. So I'm going to continue to scroll back down to our health insurance topic. And again, today, I'm interested in the civilian non-institutionalized population, no health insurance coverage. Well, we can look at a number, or we could also look at a percent. And today I'm interested in looking at it based on the percent. So I'm going to come over here and select this as my feature to map. And now it's going to show me a map. So you'll see, based on the table information, we've created a map. It's showing me the state of Oregon, and I'm getting the data broken down by various classes and at percent. So again, just to refresh, our table that we selected, or the information we selected, was the percent of health insurance coverage, civilian non-institutionalized population, no health insurance coverage by county. And so this is what we get. Now, there is a lot of different features that you can look at using this mapping tool, but I'm going to just show you, we're just going to look at a couple today. So again, we have our legend telling us how it's broken down, and then I am going to use this identify tool because I see that right here I've got a county in dark green, and I want to know more information about what that county is. So I'll click on it, and it's telling me that it's Sherman County. And so this is the county in Oregon that it looks like that has the highest percent of this grouping with no insurance at 18%. And then if I wanted to look at another county, I could do that as well with this tool. And then we'll come back up and we'll put our legend back on. And we can zoom in and we can zoom out using those tools. And if you really like this table or this map, we have what's really nice is a bookmark and save feature. That if you copy this URL, you can save it in a Word document. If you wanted to send it to a coworker, you could paste it in an email, and when that person clicks on the link, they will come right to this map that was created. So this is just one example of how you can look at some of this health insurance data in American Factfinder. The other really neat aspect that I've discovered that we have is also looking at the data by learning more about the questions. So we're going to go up here to United Census Bureau logo, and this is going to take us back to our home page. And from here, we're going to go to Survey, American Community Survey, and here, we're going to come down to why do you ask each question? And you'll see at the top here, you can download, if you're interested, fact sheets for all persons or questions relating to all housing. You also have a filter here if you want to use a keyword. But I'm just going to scroll down because I want to be able to show you some of the things that you can look at. So you can see by topic we have, for example, this is acreage, and then the housing questions that are related to this topic. And we're just going to scroll on down, and you can kind of see as we go on down some of the options. But here's our topic for today, health insurance coverage, question 16. And so you start off with a little bit of information about why we asked the question. We talked a little bit about that earlier in the presentation. We address privacy. We are bound by restrictions. We cannot share your data. So we provide some information on that. We do not share this data. You can look at the question as it appears on the form, results from this question. So this is what we're going to look at in just a moment. But I want to go on and finish showing you. So it talks about health insurance coverage data to help communities. We assist children and families. We provide information for veterans, American Indians. You'll also see right here, we've got this neat map, this visualization that we did with some of the data. Understanding some changes and why we ask about health insurance coverage. We have just something briefly about the history of the question, and then you can get this information to go. We have a fact sheet here if you're interested. But we're going to come back up here to results from this question. I think this is a really neat feature. I think, one, it's great that we provide some of this additional information if you want to know about the question. But this also gives you an opportunity to go in and get some of the statistics as well. So you can see by default we have some information at the U.S. level, and then we'll come here, and we'll come on down, and we're going to stick with Oregon, and we'll say get data, and then we've got information at the state level, some of the key buckets. And they actually give us the option to break it down a little further, which is even great. So we're going to look at the county option. And for my county, I'm going to come down and select Marion, and I'm going to say get data. And so here we have it even broken down a little further with some of these buckets. So I'm going to look at working age adults with employer-based health insurance. And if you click on this blue, it provides a link, and it opens up to a table in American Factfinder. So here we've got some information side by side at the state level, and we also have it for our county as well. And then you can see some of the information that it provides. So we've got employer-based health insurance, a loan or in combination, direct purchase. We've got it broken down by the ages, TRICARE military health, if you've got private health insurance, information about working, and coverage alone. So this is a really great way, too, to, one, learn about more about the question and why we ask it, but it's also a shortcut to access some of the key data that you might be looking for this as well, for this health insurance topic. So those are just a couple ways that I wanted to show you. I think one of the second option might be one of the lesser-known options that if you've always been wondering about our questions and why we ask them, this is a great place, whether it's health insurance or you could see we had it broken down by the various topics as well. And in some cases, it might be an easy way to go ahead and access some of the data. So some of you may have found our webinar today through our new Data Dissemination and Training Hub, which is called Census Academy. Census Academy is a great place to find out about the other webinars that we're offering. We are also providing data gems, and those are short tutorial clips about various different topics. For example, you might see those YouTube videos where you can learn how to make a cake in 3 minutes. So this is what we offer. We offer information about how to look at perhaps a feature in American Factfinder, how to look something up, a particular data topic. So we offer these short clips. We'll also be providing some course modules in the near future. In mid-May, we'll start to release some courses, so that'll be great. And we're always looking for content for Census Academy. So please feel free to reach out to David and I or our general box when we provide it if there are certain things that you are interested in learning about. And actually, we provide our email right here as well on the slide. You can see it's census.askdata@census.gov. We are everywhere on social media, so follow us if you're not. You can find out what's going on at the Bureau. You can also find out about upcoming webinars. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We've got several great videos and tutorials posted on YouTube. We're on Instagram. And also, for one way that if you want to learn about what's going on at the Bureau, you can sign up for our alerts and manage those. I know a lot of us, we tend to get a lot of mail, but it is a great way to keep up on what's going on at the Bureau, and you can manage your subscriptions by topics. This is the contact for David and I. Also, again, I had mentioned that we have our general box and our toll-free number. So if you're interested in finding out who your local data dissemination specialist is, you can call that number or send an email to census.askdata@census.gov. And we certainly like to thank you for taking your time out of your day to join us today. And hopefully we've been able to provide you with some helpful information on this topic. And with that, Rebecca, let's go ahead and open the lines for any questions.
Absolutely. Once again, we will now begin our question and answer session. If you would like to ask a question, press star 1 from your phone, unmute your line, and record your first and last name clearly when prompted. One moment while we wait for the first question. There are no questions in queue at this time.
Yeah, this is David. I just had a comment. Heidi, I don't think we can show it now, but I just want to point out that the data is available down to tract level, correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, yeah, that's at a pretty granular level. They can get most of that health information, health insurance data down to kind of like a neighborhood area that's called a census tract. So, and can you do that using the mapping tool as well?
Yes, you can.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
And I just have a question. Go ahead.
And I was just going to say, yeah, so today for the example, I did stick at the county level, but yes, another option is, as David said, that you can go to a lower level of geography, that census tract level, which people, we tend to say people are asking for that neighborhood level. That is a geography that we kind of, that's at that level. It's usually about 4,000 people at that typical geography. And you can map it and look at the data tables as well.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you. No more questions from me. I'm just looking to see, I think we may...
Do we have anything through the chat, David?
Let me see. Okay, some people said they were happy to see the map. Cool. I don't know how much time we have. Are you still in there, Heidi? Someone did want to know if they could see a tract, something mapped at the tract level.
Go in. Yes, we have time to do that. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to clear my search. That way we can see from the beginning. So I'm going to go back into my geographies, and I'm going to go ahead and select, come here. So we're going to come down to states. We've got our county, and then here is our census tract. And I'm going to stick with Oregon. And then I'm going to stick with Marion County. And I'm going to say all census tracts within Marion County. And add that to my selection. We'll close out of here. And then we're going to come back up to our topics again. And we're going to say people. And we're going to come and we're going to say health. I'm going to close out of here. Now, I'm actually going to cross, for this example, I will cross it with another characteristic. And this time, I'm just going to show you a different way to do it. I'll type in disability, because that is often something that people are interested in, the cross-tabulation of that. And say go. So here we've got potential people that we can look at here. We put in our search, all tracks. We put in health insurance cross with disability. And we can look at here, age by disability status by health insurance coverage status. And you'll come down. It'll look similar to when we looked at the county level. Instead of counties across the top, we've got a variety of the different census tracts. And then we can look here. We've got under 19, just looking at some of our data options. We've got under 19 years with a disability and health insurance coverage. Without, no disability. We also have it broken down by age, 19 to 64. And we also have it with 65 years and older. I'm going to come back up here. And I'm going to go ahead and say that we're going to look at the 19 to 64 years. And again, we'll look at that. You've got with a disability, and we're going to look at no health insurance coverage, because again, this is something that people are interested in often. We're going to come up. We're going to click that Create a Map again. We have options again. Turn blue. We can come down here, 19 to 64. Again, we're looking at with a disability, no health insurance coverage. And then for here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at estimate of the population. I'm going to show our map. And again, so our table, we have our table number, the table that we're looking at, age by disability status, by health insurance coverage status. We're going to come down here, and here is an example for a thematic map, 1964, with a disability, no health insurance coverage at the tract level. We're going to come down here. And so this is the information that we have. So this is at the county level. It's Marion County, and this is what we've shown, and these are all the different tracts. You can see we've got around the city of Salem, we've got some smaller tracts. As you go out where it's a little bit more rural, the tracts are a little bit bigger. We have our data classes here, starting at 0 and then up to 205.
Heidi, can you show them how to change the color on that map?
Yes, we can do that.
Because we males don't always see colors as well as females do, so sometimes we have to, higher incidence do. Okay.
If you use the wrench tool, we can change the color. Yes, that's a great point. This is one of the features. You don't have to look at If that color scheme does not work for you, we can do something a little bit different. Let's come in here, some blue and greens. So it changed it a little bit. We'll do something maybe a little more dramatic. A little bit. And then we also have, I'll show you while we're here, you can also break it down. This is in, you can do it by natural breaks, you can do it by equal interval, you can do it by quantile, or you can define your quantiles as well. And you can break it down by classes. So right now the default is 5, but you can go fewer. You can also go more as well. And again, we have that really great feature where you can bookmark and save it. So if you want to share it with a colleague, you've created this map and you want to share it with a colleague, you can copy this URL. And again, you've got, that identify tool that'll tell you this is what the particular tract is and your value.
That's great. Thanks, Heidi. I have another question that came in on the chat.
Yeah.
So the question isn't really about the mapping tool. It's just someone's just wondering how we, what we do to compel neighbors who are reluctant to fill out the census questionnaire. My thoughts are usually explaining the process, like we did today, not to that extent, but that their private data gets turned into statistics only. I think it's one of the better ways to get people to answer that. Also, just stories, how people use statistical data to solve problems or bring services back to the public or communities. That's very helpful. The Census Bureau is always looking for data user stories, how people use it. Just for example, one thing in there that we did not show that today, we do ask the question how well people speak English. And there is a table in there that sort of says in different areas where people do not speak English well, doesn't really say what the language is. But people who teach ESL are interested in that data. They like to know where they're going to set up classes for ESL. They don't necessarily need to know what the foreign language is that people speak. So that's just like one little, story there. But we're always looking for stories, how people use the data. So if anyone happens to know, have an interesting way that you're using the data, you might not think it's interesting, but we would. The Census Bureau is always looking for that and looking for sort of a testimonial in how you would use it. So please, send that to us if you get something. And, so I hope I answered that question just a little bit. Yeah, go ahead.
And I just pulled that up. You'll see on the screen. Everyone should see. It's our ACS data stories. So you'll see we have an option right here, share your story. We'd love to hear from you. We'd like to hear about how people are using our data. We also have stories published here from other data users and how they've used it in their community. And I think, just to add on to that question, David, I think one of the things that always pops into my mind, and you touched upon it, is how important filling out, whether it's the census or one of our surveys, getting that data and how it is used by federal, state, local, tribal governments to help them inform decisions for their community and, as you said, David, for those services, your infrastructure, your roads, your schools, how many police and fire, hospitals. So all that's really important. Rebecca, did any questions happen to come in through the line?
There are no other questions in queue at this time.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, David, in chat?
No, I think we're good unless I missed something. Let me look really quickly. Okay. So, Heidi, I just want to point out something here. Somebody said that she tried to map something by census tract, and it didn't work for her. I think something we did not point out with Census Track, data is only available at the 5-year ACS data level. And if you happened to choose 1-year ACS data, it's not going to map it for you. It's not going to work. So you have to make sure that you've chosen the 5-year data. And you also have to make sure that you've chosen at least 2 tracks. You can't just choose one. It's not going to map one track because the map is trying to make a comparison. So you have to be sure of that as well. So make sure you're choosing 5-year data and make sure you're choosing multiple tracks as well. But anybody who had a question, you are certainly welcome to email us offline, and we will help you as best we can. So thank you.
Okay.
So I think we're good, Heidi.
Yeah, I think so. So again, thank you to everyone for taking time out of your day to join us. Hopefully you learned some information that you can use or pass on to others. And again, for future webinars, you can look for future webinars at our Census Academy page. We've got a variety of different topics. This current webinar series that we're running runs from April 1st to the end of June. And we also share other sessions that we put up there that some of our peers and other divisions are doing as well. And with that, I guess, Rebecca, we can just do one last quick check, and then we'll sign off for today.
There's still no questions in queue.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, we'll end our session today. And again, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. And we look to see some of you on a future webinar.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to stay on the line and try to answer some chat questions really quickly. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your participation in today's conference. All parties may disconnect at this time. Leaders, please stand by.